Fear Factor, 15 minutes to your ideal retirement, Webinar 10. What kind of team do you need to navigate the shark-infested waters that lie ahead? Hello, this is Adrienne Berg with financial advisor Ronald Gielach, answering your questions in a 12-part webinar series on how to retire and live the life you love and deserve. This is the 10th webinar in the series, and you can find the other 9 at ronaldgielach.com. That's G-E-L-O-K. In the preceding webinar, we discussed whether there really is a way to keep what's earned in the good years and not lose in the bad years. In this webinar, we go further and ask, what kind of team do you need to navigate the shark-infested waters that lie ahead? Ron, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here again.
You know, wow, you say shark-infested waters. That's pretty strong words. What does await us when we finally go out there and we do our planning for retirement?
Well, I think, unfortunately, so much of what passes for retirement planning is done in a very disjointed, disconnected way. For example, some people will say, well, I've worked with a broker, or I've had an attorney did a will for me years ago, or somebody does my taxes every year. And these professionals never talk to one another, and there's never a coordinated plan put together. And so we try to fix that problem by taking a holistic approach and working with a team of professionals, whether that's professionals that a client already has on their team or whether we need to introduce them to the right people.
Sometimes we think about shark-infested. Part of the sharks actually is not a person, but a tax system. So one of the ways that you really distinguish yourself is you look carefully at the tax aspects of retirement planning, which are very often forgotten. Can you just illuminate us a little bit with regard to that?
Well, yeah. I mean, if we're not careful, we leave ourselves vulnerable to taxes that we could describe as predatory or confiscatory. And I kind of like to use that word predatory because if you think about it, a shark is a predator.
Yes.
And what we want to do is plan. Just like if we were at the beach and a shark was spotted in the water, we get out of the water. Well, if we know that there are provisions in the tax code that are almost like we could describe as traps for the unwary, we want to be able to deal with that ahead of time through proper planning. And I'm amazed how many people don't realize, for example, Adrienne, that there is in many states, New Jersey, New York included, state taxes. So this is one area where people are lulled into a false sense of security, much the same way somebody could be lying on a raft in shark-infested waters and think they're fine. Meanwhile, the sharks are underneath the raft. Same thing is true when this issue of state-estate taxes. If we think, well, we don't have to worry because we get a $5 million plus federal estate tax threshold, and then we ignore, for example, that the state of New Jersey's got a $675,000 state estate tax threshold, well, then we're leaving ourselves vulnerable.
And you've also spent quite a bit of time in past webinars, and I certainly hope you'll all go to ronaldgielach.com and listen to the past webinars on the shark-infested tax waters when we withdraw from our 401ks and what happens when we have to make our minimum required distributions. Just review that a bit for us before we talk about how to get the right team.
Oh, sure. I mean, we actually refer to 401ks, 403bs, 457 plans, IRAs as being tax-infested accounts or tax-hostile assets. And when we first use these terms with people, sometimes they're a little taken aback. They'll say, well, I thought my 401k was the greatest thing because it allows me to grow my money tax-deferred. And, we made the point in a prior webinar that too much tax deferral is like a pact with the devil. Why? Because when the money comes out, it's coming out at some unknown future, potentially higher tax rate. And if you draw out too fast, you can trigger massive taxation. So this is where we get into the whole area that's so overlooked of distribution planning, where we want to look and be able to figure out, well, when should we be drawing money out of the retirement account? So we just follow, conventional tired wisdom that says, oh, just wait till 70 and a half. or should we look at perhaps coordinating that decision with what age a person may perhaps collect Social Security? For example, we don't see anything wrong with taking some income distributions out of an IRA or 401k between 66 and 70 and perhaps delaying Social Security from 66 to 70, because by doing that we can make lifetime Social Security income 32% higher. And I'm always amazed that sometimes people just don't know what they don't know, so we view our job as not just to inform but to educate.
You know, you talked about the word coordination, and I think that is why people don't plan for retirement. They have to see an accountant. They have to see a lawyer. They have to make those people talk to each other. They have to go to a financial planner. Who knows what else, an insurance broker, all over the place. And we all agree we need a team, but it's very, very difficult to build our own team. So what at Ron Gilak and Associates have you created that is truly different from the norm? And how did you craft your team and put them together?
Well, it really, how could I put it? It took years of identifying the right people with the right skill sets and more than anything else, the attitude of caring about their clients. And so I hate to say through trial and error, but a little bit through trial and error, we put together a team of professionals that we're able to work with our clients. Now, some of these are on salary on our staff, and some of these are outside professionals. And don't get me wrong, if a client says to me, hey, I've got an accountant that I'm thrilled with and that I love, or I've got an estate planning attorney that I'm thrilled with and that I love, we can work with those professionals. But if somebody says, hey, you know, I've got an out-of-date will, it was done 30 years ago, there's trusts for minor children in it that are now adults, and I know I don't have a tax-planned will, or I think maybe I need a revocable living trust, then we're going to make the introduction to an attorney who specializes in estate planning, and we're going to help quarterback that plan.
You know, your motto, or the brand of Ronald Gilak and Associates, is trust and know-how. And let's unpack that. Let's unpack that slogan. What is the importance of trust? It seems obvious, but I think it goes a little deeper than we think about when we're dealing with our retirement planning.
Well, you know, trust is something that's earned over time. And what was really interesting, Adrian, is last week we did another one of our client appreciation events where we had 100+ clients come out and get together, and we gave them a dinner, and we presented one of our client ambassadors with an award. And I don't think I've ever met such a group of happy people in one room. But this trust was earned over time. But the way we're establishing trust with people is through complete transparency. So what does that mean? It means we disclose the way we get paid. So there are some things that we do that are fee-based. So if we're going to recommend something that's fee-based, we're going to explain to a client, well, here's what the fee structure is. Some things are commission-based. So if we make a recommendation that's in the best interest of the client, and that happens to be coming from a company that pays us a commission, we're going to disclose that too. And what's so startling, if you think about it, is we've built all this through word of mouth. We don't advertise. You know, it's not like you see me on television commercials or on billboards or in glossy magazine ads. We've built all this through word of mouth, through one happy client telling a friend or a family member, go talk with Ron and his team.
And that's really what we're looking for. We're looking to trust, and we're looking for other people who've had the experience so that they can make that recommendation. But, of course, we're also looking for know-how. And as we unpack that slogan, trust and know-how, what does know-how mean to you?
Well, from my perspective, I look at things a little bit differently than a lot of planners or advisors do. And part of that has to do with my training or background. I graduated from the University of California's Hastings College of the Law, which has one of the top tax law programs in the country. And so I'm always looking at the tax ramifications or tax implications of planning and investment decisions. And I think in the world we live in today, where taxes are so high, to not do that, you operate at your own peril, or to just say, well, you know, I've got a broker, that's good enough, or I've got an accountant who does my taxes once a year, that's good enough. Well, you know what? Our clients feel in today's world that that's not good enough. That's not enough. So I'm able to, I think because of my training and background, pay attention to some of the minutia, for example, of the terms of insurance contracts. For example, I'll have different wholesalers approach me on, oh, you should be offering this product or that product to clients. And you know what? The vast majority of these things I throw in the garbage because they're one-sided or they're written in favor of an insurance company instead of the client. So that gets back to the mission to educate. When I was an undergraduate, I actually went to Montclair State University. I thought I wanted to be a teacher at the time. And
that explains a lot, Ron, by the way. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah, and so this is why I kind of view my role as to educate and teach, because I want informed clients. And if you think about it, if you're informed on pluses, minuses, costs, benefits, then you know you're making the right decisions about what you're doing. And I hate to say it, but I think there's too many people in our business who, how can I put it, lie by omission, meaning, you know, they may explain something, but they don't explain it in enough detail, or they don't take time to make sure that the client gets it. So all the advisors on our team were trained by me to make sure that any client that they're counseling gets it, that they understand what's being explained to them backwards and forwards.
You know, we've talked about the fact that you can pull from outside sources like attorneys and accountants and others, work with the client's own trusted financial professionals, that you've got your own in-house team of advisors, you have your own in-house team of people who help with the paperwork. But, you know, when it comes to building a team, there's a softer side of retirement. And that's the emotional issues, where to move, how to keep up morale, how to help your aging parents, even how to travel. And in seeing your client as the whole person, how does your team help there as well?
Well, number one, we really get to know our clients not just from the perspective of their finances, but knowing them as people and knowing what's important to them and exploring what problems they want to solve. For example, Adrian, so many times a person will come in and let's say that person's 60 years old. Well, you know, it's 50% of 60-year-olds have a living parent. And so here we're doing this retirement planning, and unfortunately a lot of retirement planning is done in a vacuum. Nobody even bothers to ask the question, is mom or dad still alive? Because if you think about it, it's kind of hard to uproot and say, well, I'm going to move to North Carolina or I'm going to move to Florida if someone's, you know, 92-year-old mother is in ailing health and here in New Jersey. So we look at all the issues that are of concern to someone. You know, for example, sometimes a person will say to me, you know, you're the first person that ever asked me about my grandchild, and you're the first person that ever discovered that I have a grandchild who suffers from autism. Well, we need to know that, because if that's part of the planning to make special provisions for that grandchild, we want to be able to advise how to go about doing that. And this gets into the area where so many times people will say, you know, I want to give my grandchildren a leg up in life, and at the same time I don't want to shortchange my own retirement. So how am I supposed to figure out what I need in the way of resources to generate the income that I'm going to need over the next 25 years, and then at the same time be free to put together a plan to help fund my grandchild's education or to create an inherited Roth IRA for them one day. So this is,
you know, your team not only works with the individual but works with the family too. And I wanted to point out, Ron, excuse me for the interruption, but I really think this is important because it's so rare that you will do virtual consulting, that you do have a system. As long as the individual can use Skype or some other kind of video calling, even though people may be in different parts of the world, all over the world, with an older parent, with a sibling they have to plan for, even with a grandchild who you may want to meet for certain reasons in terms of building their legacy. You can meet them without them coming into the office. And you've created that because you do go beyond just the individual client or the individual couple to the rest of their family. And that's a very, very important part of what your team can do for people. What I wanted to go on to next, which is something that's been a pet peeve of mine, you go to a planner and they're pretty good. And they make a nice plan for you and you invest with them. And then you become strangers. There's no monitoring. They've made their commission or they've made their fee. They say, well, we'll meet every 6 months or a year, and somehow it just doesn't happen. How do you keep in communications with your clients?
Oh my gosh, it may be a little bit of overkill, but number one, clients can sign up for a weekly email update. Number two, we're sending out a monthly newsletter. Number three, we're reaching out and touching clients on their birthdays. Number four, we're doing ongoing educational events for clients. Number five, we're doing review meetings, whether it's via telephone or via Skype or face-to-face in the office. I had one client say, this is unbelievable. I've worked with other advisors over the years, and they all ended up disappearing on me, yet you guys stay in touch. And that's part of the team that we have here, because if you think about it, I'm one person. I can't be in multiple places at once. So we've put together a team of support people here in the office so that I'm able to focus with clients on those issues that are most important to them. And if somebody needs help with a clerical issue or they need a duplicate statement, there's people here to help with the most mundane of tasks as well.
It's interesting because you're one of the few who actually use social media. There's a lot of compliance restraints, but within those compliance restraints, you're posting on Twitter, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn, usually articles for clients to read in all areas of their life, health, travel, anything that really is relevant to what retirement means to them in their life. And I think that's why the people at the client appreciation meeting were pretty happy people.
Well, right, and this is why what happens in our practice is we have clients referring across generations. So I can think of one family where the great-grandparent was a client, the daughter was a client, the grandson was a client, and we did some 529 plans or education fundings for the great-grandchildren. So it's nice when we're able to work with a family across generations and do family meetings and do things right.
Sure, and this is a great time to ask you guys who are listening, are you ready to spend the 15 minutes it takes to get the fear out of retirement? Stop running with the herd. If so, start with a complimentary consultation with Ronald Gilak and Associates and register for our next webinar. How does overcoming fear, false evidence affecting retirement, and making smart decisions in your money life spill over to all of your retirement decisions? Well, you can do both. Register for the complimentary consultation and also register for the next seminar right at the website, ronaldgilak, GELOK.com. Thanks for being with us, Ron.
Oh, thanks for having me, Adrienne.